not standing there. Yes! See, I was really, actually, I guess I kind of got it, so I'm not totally getting shot, because I had to put this in there, because I still haven't totally trained you all.
Pavlovian.
It is. So, since it's Pavlovian, we'll do it again today. All right. How about you?
How about me? How about me? I'm okay. Are you okay? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are, I think, quite a few visiting Rotarians and guests today. So, let's start here.
Thank you, President Ray. This is my longtime friend Linda Mulgrew, who's visiting from Monterey.
And I have one of my co-workers, Olivia, who's here from HCOE, obviously, and she's got an announcement. You want me to do that now or later?
I had a spot for it, but let's
Okay.
start doing it now.
Okay,
I like
perfect.
mixing it up.
Perfect.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Olivia Kernan, and I coordinate the Early Literacy Program at the Humboldt County Office of Education. The Early Literacy Program places community volunteers in classrooms across the county for K through second grade. We are currently looking for math and reading tutors. We have a training coming up on August 29th. These tutors tutor one-on-one with our littlest learners that may be having a hard time learning their numbers or letters, and I would just want to extend an invitation. If any of you are interested in volunteering, it's a 2-hour commitment a week, and I have some flyers with me. Thank you so much.
All right, and I have our guest speaker today, Ron White, and I'll give a little more introduction about him a little later on from the meeting today.
I have my niece Jessica and my sister-in-law Donna. We travel from Lake County and visit. And Jessica is looking at HSU for next year. We did a tour yesterday. So
welcome.
Recognitions. I know that we're still not getting a lot of them, but if you get them, please send them in. Try to keep going. Sojourning Sunrisers. Do we have anybody who's done any travel?
hi, President Ray.
Hi.
It's me again.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you done travel? I have to break something to you. This chair was put here. There's a very strong purpose to this. If you want to talk, you have to be on this side of it, otherwise he beats me.
That works. That works.
This chair is just for me. All right.
Hi, Club. How are you? Let's see. I have done a little bit of travel recently. My husband and I celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary, and so we went up to Ashland and saw 4 plays. We got smoked out of one of the plays, but we did see 4 others, so that was great, our annual sojourn. And then last weekend, my family went out to Forest Glen Campground, which is out on the South Fork of the Trinity River. Really beautiful place out on Highway 36. We've been going for more than 35 years, and so celebrated our annual camping trip out there. So that was really fun. So, next person is going to have to stand. This is an interesting perspective.
I actually don't think that I like this. I'm not used to this. This is so weird for me.
I want to see the triple twisting dismount next time, though.
Yeah.
Gotta stick it.
Yes, you'll have to work on your dismount.
Hello. Hi. Marty and I spent 2 weeks in Australia. We helped our goddaughter celebrate her wedding, and her wedding was on my birthday, August 4th. So it was, we had a great time. There were 3 of her girlhood friends from McKinleyville came from Hood River, Reading, and the UK to celebrate with her, and her uncle, who we hadn't seen in a while and went to high school with Marty a long time ago, was there. We had a great time. The wedding was beautiful. The bride was amazing. The food was the best wedding food I've ever had, and if I could figure out a way to not kill my one older cat by making him travel that far, I would probably consider moving to Brisbane, Australia. So, anyway, it was fabulous. We had a great time. And we're back in this time zone now. We've been back almost a week, so it's kind of, it feels like I should be at breakfast.
Sorry. We are hosting the Mad River exchange student, Jens from Italy, and we picked him up. He arrived on the 2nd of August, and then we swept him off on an RV trip to Santa Barbara and spent time there on the beaches. Our daughter goes to UC Santa Barbara, so she took us up to some interesting places at the top of the mountains, a place called Blizzard Rock, where I think she forgot that I'm over 50 and she's not. So we climbed over rocks and got to the tippy top of the most beautiful place, and we were able to look down over the ocean and over Santa Barbara. And then we packed up all of her things and her dog, and she went off to South America. She's going to be on exchange for 6 months, so we won't see her for a while. But we have the dog and we have Jen, so we're no longer empty nesters for a little while. Anyway, we had a good time.
I went to Santa Cruz, got my slug. I did a week-long 1,200-mile driving trip with my niece, my 18-year-old niece, and we went to Santa Cruz, Monterey. We drove Highway 1, San Luis Obispo, Walnut Creek, and I also went to a high school reunion. And
which high school?
Coverly. Nobody knows it because we broke it. We were the last class to graduate, so we effectively and then they shut it down. So we broke it. So from there, I had to go to UC Santa Cruz. It was only fitting. But you know, you can hurt your body by driving that much in a week.
Yeah, you can hurt your body by doing anything that much in a week. It's probably not the best.
All right. Well, we do have one more person who's done some traveling, and that's Finn. Welcome, Finn.
Yeah. Good morning. Nice to meet you. I'm very excited to be here and very thankful to give me that opportunity. So, yeah, my name is Finn. I'm from Lower Saxony, near Göttingen, in a small village named Gladbeck. I don't think so, you know that. Okay, yeah, and I'm happy to be here.
In a few weeks, we're going to give him a bunch more time to talk. So, but for those of you who didn't, let's see if I actually completely failed this time. No. To do it, believe it works. So for those of you who didn't get to join us, you can see exactly what it was like for him to show up. Yay! And then all the lovely Rotarians who were there to greet him. So, yeah, we had a fantastic turnout. And excellent. I guess I should have given this some sound because we all greeted him and said hello. And
he has to remember all of our names.
Yeah, and so we will actually test you and see if you know all of our names. We'll give you a week.
Someone told him the dress right, he's already wearing a hoodie though, right?
Yeah.
That's for the climate,
so,
you know.
There is one small piece to this missing, and Nick showed up. Nick was carrying a pile of sweatshirts from Arcata High School to make sure that he has the proper attire to keep him warm. So, yeah. So, fantastic. So now you all can feel like you've been there.
Thank you.
Sweet. How come? Nice.
So,
just real quick, we're looking for somebody, if anybody has a tennis racket we could borrow, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, I've got one. Yeah,
and because Finn wants to learn how to play some tennis, and he's also very interested in surfing. He's been surfing a couple times already. If there's anybody here who's a surfer who wants to take him out, he'd really appreciate it. He's got all of his own equipment, so it's easy.
I'm gonna learn. Oh, that's great.
So, I don't know if you just caught that, Crystal. That's a RISE event. You'll now be the chair for that.
Bless you. For sure.
So I like my little weekly thank you because I get to pick a person that has helped me out, helped the club out, does great things for Rotary. And this week it's Carol. You're my Rotarian of the week. So you're my Rotarian of the week because you constantly send me things and make sure that I'm on top of stuff and remind me of all the things I forget because I'm actually pretty good at this. But because you're Rotarian of the week, look. I've actually remembered to put this.
All right, yes, just a little reminder that we got the Adopt a Highway coming up Saturday, August 25th at the Nature Center, 9:30, 11:30. It's been a while, so there's going to be a lot of trash to pick up out there. And then we celebrate our volunteerism over at the Regus in Arcata afterwards. So it's really nice. So hope to see many of you there. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. This was for you. So, everyone start from Olivia. If you haven't, please, now there's a slide so you can actually go back and remember to talk to her and get more information. So, do we have any announcements?
We are 1 week away from the day at the races, the Rise event. So mark it on your calendar, talk to your boss, be your own boss, take the time off, 3 o'clock. We'll be at the track down there, just gathering, having a good time for enjoying the fair. So come on out, put it on your calendar, and we'll look forward to seeing you. Bring a chair. Bring a little chair to sit on too.
Bring a chair.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm going to give you advance notice. Last year, about 20 of us volunteered on a Saturday to do trail work in the Arcata Community Forest. We did this in coordination with Reese Hughes, who leads that effort. And they provided a really nice lunch with great soup. Many of you remember that event. We're going to repeat it again this year on September 22nd, which is a Saturday. So put it in your calendar, and in a few weeks I'll start sending out a sign-up sheet to try and round all of you up for this event. So thank you.
A reminder out for that again next week. Anybody else? Well, I guess I could stall because I'm not the sergeant at arms. I've been on the committee, so I can stall a little bit. Nick? No, I'm just standing here in the spot where I'm allowed to stand.
Come on, Ray.
Yeah, it's okay. I was going to try to climb up on this, but we've got the stage prepared for you, so you can just come here and stand on this. Yeah, it'll be perfect.
Yes,
it'll be
ma'am.
perfect.
Yes. Sergeant at Arms. What do we do? All of this. So, a couple of you who are new who don't really know, or anybody has never been on the Sergeant at Arms committee because things change. We set up meetings, we put up all banners, we set up everything here other than the catering and all that. We arrange it, but we don't do it. Anytime we have an outing at any off-site meeting, we bring all our gear, we set it up there, we take down, we make sure that the venues are adequate for what we need when we set them up. Taste of the holidays, all of that, we make sure everybody has their badges and things like that. It's a requirement as a red badge to do because it gives you an opportunity to meet all the members that you may not have encountered unless you're up there giving badges out. That's kind of it. Other than that, on my side, I track your meal cards and do all that, kind of do all the numbers for that, and then run it with Brian for that. It's not a super difficult thing. It's just you show up early, kind of help out however you need to, which some Rotarians tend to do even though they're not on the committee anyways. But, that's kind of it. What's that?
Rock stars.
That's right. That's what makes our club great.
Stay to take everything down again.
And then take everything down. Yeah. It's not hard, but it's a good chance to kind of meet everybody and see everybody's faces.
Do you have to remove unruly Rotarians?
Yeah. John, you're out.
I think you do such a great job, you should be promoted to lieutenant.
I actually almost put it up as private at arms because he's been demoted a few times. He's been pretty rough lately.
That's what happens when you lose everybody's mail card number, and then you're all back at 0. I'm going on vacation.
Oh, I apologize if I'm going to talk. I'm supposed to move here. So, yeah, this is better.
Yes.
So, one of the other things, the pitch that he's not making, Sergeant at Arms is a committee that could definitely use a little bit of help. So if anyone here, yeah, see,
Thank you.
looking out for you. So if anybody has any time, we've had some people that have left. We've had some people that have picked up other jobs. Sorry, I guess this was, I'm not going to call this a more important job, but I'm going to call this a job that doesn't allow me to be on the Sergeant at Arms committee anymore. And we definitely need someone who stays around for cleanup, so keep that in mind.
We show up at 6:30, set everything up, and it usually, the more people we have, it takes like 5 to 10 minutes to clean up afterwards. It's not very hard. So, but yeah, if you want to be able to see everybody's face and everybody say, hey, I know you, you're at everything. Sergeant at Arms Committee.
Yeah. Yeah, it sets you up perfect to be president.
That's true.
That's good.
I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, on the project.
You'll get your check later, Randy, for that part.
You have a question?
Oh,
I have a maybe.
Just from working in Sergeant at Arms for a couple of years during the raffle, it's great when you first come in the club because you get to know everybody's name. When you just learn everybody and who they are and what they do. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. I like it.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right.
So I used an entire meeting last week to try to get all the updates, to try to get people to at least be aware of all of our committees. We have so many committees, we still missed many, and even doing that, I'm going to be doing a couple updates a week to try to get us to a point where everyone knows what they're doing. So hopefully we can keep going, and we have Interact, Rotaract, and I'm not sure, are you both doing it?
We'll do it.
Yep, perfect. Well, I'll get out of the frame.
I'll do mine real quick.
Yes.
Interact, we're not in session yet. The high school students haven't come back. And they start next week, so we'll start, maybe in about 2 weeks, we'll start doing it. Interact is basically what we do at the high school level. Those kids are amazing. A lot of those kids make up the majority of our top 10% high school students, so they have way above 4.0s. And they're also giving back to the community. So for that, we love to have anybody who wants to be involved to help them to be successful. You don't have to do anything but show up and just let them fly. They're really amazing and very similar to our club. They have the same mentality, same thing with Rotaract. They have the same mentality as our club. They just want to do everything.
When do they meet?
They meet at noon on Fridays at Arcata High School.
12:30.
12:30. Yeah, 12:20. Yeah.
My final order was somewhere in the
Just be there 12
Yeah,
minutes.
that's right. So we feed them pizza so that they don't have to miss their lunch, and they just run everything. I just stand back and let them do what they do. It's super amazing to see how high school students are so motivated. I was not that motivated as high school students. And our club last year was 80 people. So it's a huge club. Yeah. So the more we can support them by showing up to help them, the better it is. And they help us at all of everything we do. They show up, they do cleanup, they do setup, they help us out a lot.
So the other part of our committee is Rotaract, and I had the pleasure of working with Rotaract for about 5 years before I transferred to this club. Our Rotaract that we sponsor meets in Arcata. It's North Bay Rotaract. They meet the first and third Wednesday at 6 p.m. right here where we meet. And this year they want to work more closely with us and with Interact to kind of build our bonds. And they are going to be joining us again at the highway cleanup. They've done that for a long time. They're going to join us for the Out of the Darkness walk. And they would like to invite us to participate in more of their events and even volunteer if you have time. If you would like to join our committee, let Nick or I know, and we can make sure if they have events that we'll let everybody in the club know, but if you can help out and just show support, that's really all they need. They run everything really well, but if they have questions, they like to be able to have advisors. So I mainly work with them on that. And other than that, if you have somebody at your work that is a young professional between 18 and 30 that you think would be a good fit for Rotaract, we invite you to take them to a Rotaract meeting. If Arcata is not a good fit, there's also Eureka one, and Eureka and Arcata clubs work really closely together. So, any questions?
And Rotaract is North Bay.
North Bay Rotaract
every
is
other Wednesday.
First and third Wednesday.
First and third Wednesday.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have board meetings on the second Wednesday, but it kind of fluctuates where the location's at. If you're on Facebook, they have a Facebook group you can join. So you just reach out to me and I can make sure you're on it if you want to just follow them a little bit more closely. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, by 5 years of being in Rotaract, Ashley actually restarted the North Bay Rotaract Club. And it's through her and Rachel that we actually have this North Bay Rotaract Club.
I encourage you to join our committee.
Yeah. How many members are in Rotaract
It
right now?
fluctuates between 10 and 20 depending on, because since it's for 18 to 30-year-olds, people move away or they get new jobs, so it can be hard to keep up with that, and so that's why they're constantly looking for new members, but yeah, they do a really good job.
Are they recruiting up on campus at this point?
They are. They actually reached out. It's hard because they can't put flyers up if they're not an official club there, but they have been trying to network more. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, it's at 6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
I think I found a way to break your system. This is perfect. I'm still in the frame and I can sit. All right.
No,
fine.
he's got a furrowed brow, Ray.
Yeah, he looked upset. I'm sorry. I'll move it back. I'll ruin it. So, I'm very happy. I'm ahead of schedule and everything. So,
All right,
I'm
great.
gonna
Can
let
we
Carol.
pull out the podium up there for Ron?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Come on. All right, we have some flyers to put on people's tables, and I'll introduce Ron here in a moment.
Wow, a bit of advice. Don't look at that.
All right, all right. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased that we have Ron White with us, and let me give you a little bit of his bio. Ron White is the Humboldt Area Foundation's Leadership Program Manager, responsible for the development of leadership skills, knowledge, and practice of civic and grassroots leadership. Currently, his work includes the Equity Alliance of the North Coast, what he'll be speaking about today. Ron has an extensive background in social change philanthropy, where he's held positions at every level, from program officer to executive director and trustee, and brings a strong knowledge of community organizing and community-based development. He holds a BA in philosophy from the Dominican College of Racine, is that right, Wisconsin, and an MA in the history and philosophy of religions from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Ron has 2 adult children, a wife who has supported, challenged, and helps him grow spiritually and professionally for over 47 years. So please welcome Ron.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm used to more of a response. Good morning. Good
morning.
Thank you. Grew up in a Baptist sort of background, so call and response is part of our DNA. My name is Ron White. As you've heard, for the past 3 years, I've held the position of Leadership Program Manager at the Humboldt Area Foundation. I'll be using our time together pretty much to move between personal biography and talking about the Equity Alliance of the North Coast. So the start of the Equity Alliance. It was about 3 years ago that 3 women, Laura Olson, at that time the California Endowment, and now ED at the Smolin Foundation, Connie Stewart at the California Center for Rural Policy, ED, founder, and Jen Rice, the Director of Community Strategies, and my boss, sat down with a new employee, that would be me, and shared the results of several HAF listening campaigns that they've conducted over the past few years among civil and social services leadership. These listening campaigns surfaced expected concerns about housing and homelessness, mental health services, hunger and security, and a destabilizing economy, but also unexpectedly saw a more urgent and fundamental need for a shift in a culture in their organizations, agencies, businesses, to be more inclusive. So the three women, for various reasons, turned to me to invite Professor John Powell to give a series of talks to jumpstart conversations about racial equity here in this community. Connie Stewart at the time insisted that this not be a one-shot deal. And so we envisioned a kind of follow-up, maybe a pilot of 2 to 3 organizations focused on transforming their institutions using Professor Powell's racial equity perspective, his insights about inclusion, belonging, and othering. After a year of planning, in the past 2 years, what became the Equity Alliance of the North Coast reached over 1,200 people with public talks, tailored racial equity workshops for businesses, nonprofits, police officers, corrections officers, and the local government of Arcata. And we've had 2 cohorts of multi-sector cohorts, one in Arcata and the other in McKinleyville. This year, in collaboration with the Humboldt County Office of Ed and HSU's Office of Diversity and Inclusion, we began spreading the knowledge to our school districts. As for my start, I was born in 1951 in Columbus, Georgia, 3 years before Brown v. Board of Education, and on the cusp of this country's most profound social transformation since its 300-year invention of race. Growing up in the segregated South was like being gaslighted every moment of your life. There was an all-pervasive narrative in the textbooks, in the movies, on TV, in newspapers, even on billboards, in practically every conversation that you had with a white person, that there was something really wrong with me as a person, and with black people in general. That society, pointing to crime statistics, histories of failure, broken families, and social pathologies, and convinced many in both the North and the South that black was neither beautiful nor very smart, though we could sing, dance, and play ball. In contrast, my all-black community of teachers, leaders, family, and neighbors all conspired to create a counter-narrative. You're just as good as any white person, but you'll have to work twice as hard for them to see and accept that, they said. Change is coming, they said. Maybe someday soon, they said. And they always ended with, son, you'd better be ready. Those who believed in me and my generation didn't just say, get ready. They helped us get ready, as they have for generations in the past, and as I see even for these generations attending HSU and CR. Get ready, they said. Change is going to come, they said. And for my generation, in very short order, it did. So, from the start of this collaboration 3 years ago, HAF, CCRP, and the California Endowment began to realize that we'd greatly underestimated the appetite and the need for this work here. We invited 12 organizations to help plan for Professor Powell's visit. 20 showed up. As we were incorporating learning about racial equity into our planning sessions, we at one point peaked at 30 different organizations. Now, these weren't invited organizational representatives. They just showed up out of hearsay and an interest in finding ways to talk about race and create more inclusive cultures in our service institutions, businesses, and government in Humboldt County. Maybe they could sense that change was coming, if not already here. Clearly they felt that our institutions and organizations were definitely not ready. And at that point, they were doing little to get ready. This had to change. not the least because every rural area in the US, including here, over the past decades, we're seeing becoming less white and more brown and black. I'm thankful that my parents, mentors, and teachers who helped me to get ready never shied away from the reality of racism in this country. Nor did they try to sugarcoat the inevitable tax that it would exact on me as I made my way through what turned out to be well-meaning and culturally very incompetent all-white high schools, college, and eventually grad school. But my mentors conveyed this reality without crushing my spirit or limiting my aspirations. They knew that the other trick that racism plays is to simply lure you into a sense of despair about being black or a brown person in America. So, I got a master's degree, worked to the best of my ability, and still too often found that I was being paid less than less qualified white colleagues in the field of philanthropy for the exact same position. This would continue until an HR person, in my case it was a person of color, or I myself began to publicly expose the discrepancies. And it finally ended permanently for me by starting a business on my own and working for myself for 10 years. So I guess if there's a lesson in this for those who think that we can deal with racism by simply asserting, I just don't see race, or adopting a stance of colorblindness, I would encourage you to come to one of the Equity Alliance's workshops, or our monthly roundtables, or view some of our videos from the monthly newsletters, which tell you all about implicit or unconscious bias. Best of all, I would encourage you to take the Harvard Implicit Bias assessment online. It's about 20 minutes. Either experience will leave you with an understanding that we all carry deep unconscious biases that our conscious minds not only won't admit to, but often try and rationalize when they're confronted with our biased acts. And for most of us in this country, those biases are squarely centered around race and may include gender, age, body image, religion, disability, and ableism as well. So occasionally I run into locals who assert that there really is no racism here, at least not in Arcata. They may concede McKinleyville is a horse of a different color. And others have gently suggested to colleagues of mine that there's no need for encouraging an understanding of racial equity, because this area is about 70% white. I often find myself smiling at that last observation, because it carries the assumption that if there are no people of color, there's no racism. As if somehow the presence of people of color who somehow would cause racial prejudices or racial disparities or incidents to arise on their own. As we review on every first Thursday of the month at our public racial equity roundtables, race is an invention, a social construct, designed to achieve advantage for elites and whites based solely on pigmentation. So, in my reasoning, if you're a white person who simply wants to treat other people fairly and decently, shouldn't you be more concerned about cleaning up this anti-democratic and racist legacy than even people of color? To those who don't believe racism exists here, honestly, I offer only my deepest concerns. I'm deeply concerned that they are clearly, purposefully, or unwittingly aligned to the history of this area and the continuing oppression and marginalization of Native Americans who die on the average of 12 years than their white counterparts here in Humboldt County. And if they'd attended our July roundtable, this would be common knowledge to them. Some others I've encountered here would like to reduce issues of racial inequity and prejudice to the direct and simple solutions of treating others with the golden rule, raising our children right, and just being fair to others regardless of color. While I'm not against these, anyone who attends our offering of tailored racial equity workshops which covers the 4 dimensions of racism and racial inequity, we quickly become disabused of the notion that racism can be cured on a purely personal or interpersonal level. Workshop participants learn that if institutions are not consciously correcting and exercising and examining their practices and policies for racial equity, they unconsciously create spaces where the average white will do fine and the average person of color will have to work twice as hard to manage unintended slights, microaggressions, lack of knowledge of our culture and history. We're often reduced to massacres, slavery, and migrant labor, or to stay with an organization, whether as a volunteer, board member, or employee, to say nothing about to advance in that organization. People of color's rich histories of scientific contributions, political advances that have advanced all, and richly evolving cultures and connected communities which gave us tremendous resilience are not just unknown, but we find our colleagues amazingly incurious about them. It's as if they assume everything that's good has been part of their white culture. And perhaps what they see and hear in their media about our lives and concerns is in some way an accurate depiction of who we really are. Most harmfully, many in institutional leadership operate on the assumption that we as people of color, and I say this is true for women too, must adjust to their norms and standards, without the institution having to adjust or change at all. When groups of institutions create a historical legacy and shape policies by acting this way, we have what is called structural racism. This leads to mass and economic and social disparities in multiple sectors. In other words, we get our present situation here behind the red curtain and in the nation. My teachers, growing up, gave me lessons in history that were outside the scope of our textbooks. They put me and my brothers and others in accelerated math classes, brought out the historical achievements of black and brown people in multiple fields. They taught me to be open and curious about other cultures, even the dominant white culture, and to think critically. They gave me a sense of collective responsibility, that to advance my community was to advance myself. In my brief sojourn here, I must say that I think that many here have been deprived of those same lessons. And they've suffered and caused suffering as a result of that lack. You have on your doorstep in native cultures the model of living sustainably for millennia. The social systems for living in both prosperity and peace amidst generations of diversity and different beliefs and practices. You have at your doorstep traditions and methods of holistic healing and cosmological views that modern medicine and quantum physics is only beginning to catch up to. You have the change and the means for change already at your doorstep. My hope is that the Equity Alliance of the North Coast simply helps you to be curious, become educated enough, and to respect them, and learn to pass on that knowledge from our elders in this land to those to whom we have responsibility. If we accomplish this, then a great part of the Equity Alliance's North Coast job will be done. Thank you. So if I'm right, that was 14 minutes and 20 seconds.
Really, really close to that.
I'm sorry, questions? You were raising your hand.
I had a question. I just wanted to know, could you say again when the meetings are, the racial equity roundtable is?
Yes.
Is every
so you can
first
go
Thursday?
on our website, Equity North Coast. But we have public meetings the first Thursday of every month. And we've been, for the past few sessions, been viewing the PBS series, The Power of an Illusion, Race, The Power of an Illusion. And we're going to be doing other things as we move closer to the holidays that might be appropriate for the holidays. And they're at HSU, and they run from 5:30 to 7:30. I mean, HAF, and they run from 5:30 to 7:30.
Ron, can you sign up by email to get notices?
Why, in fact, you can. We have an electronic newsletter, so if you go to this place, you can easily sign up for our newsletters and find out about not only events, but resources and videos that you can do on your own. They're usually very short and accessible.
I just wanted to say that I went to one of the Equity Alliance conferences with the city of Arcata, and we had business owners and city managers and police department, and it was a really great experience as far as how business owners could change their hiring practices and acknowledge or have insight about maybe some prejudices that they didn't realize were kind of just built into the system. And they also have like property owners and housing markets. It was really great, so I'd recommend it.
And the Equity Arcata has a working group for businesses that's going to be starting up, and they're actually going to be having their first meeting in the next few weeks, and hope to put together a series of workshops specifically tailored for local businesses and carried out by local trainers. Thank you.
I just want to second the Harvard, the implicit bias. That webpage is great. They have you can take the tests for all kinds of different issues. I took one for aging bias because I thought, well, I work in senior services. I must have no aging biases, and of course we all have biases, and we don't until you recognize them. That then you're in denial. So I think you could take them for all different topics.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It really is amazing. I think they have millions by this point people who've taken this test. And an interesting byproduct of this is that they've actually done a meta-study and found out that where an area actually has manifest specific biases, law enforcement tends to carry those through. So if there's a large implicit bias in an area, unconscious bias around race, they carry it through. Around LGBT issues, they tend to act on it. No one actually has to tell them to do this. It's kind of like in the atmosphere, conversations and jokes or whatever. Society makes up society, and so these prejudices are carried on, and then they're unexamined, and then boom. Which is one of the reasons that the Arcata Police Department actually went through an implicit bias training. And we did one for the corrections officers at the county jail.
Another minute. Anybody has any other questions?
Thank you for your work.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. We really appreciate you coming and speaking to us.
All right.
And we made a donation to the Wheelchair Foundation in your name.
Wonderful.
And I have to say that you kind of started out this and did something with your speech that makes me kind of upset with our group. You got more energy out of him than I did. Apparently, I just learned something from you. So, once again, let's give him a great round of thanks.
Nothing else will learn how to say good morning when someone says good morning.
So,
thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
We'll
You're
raise our
welcome back.
slowest learner.
You're welcome back anytime. I'm not even our slowest learner. That gives me too much credit. You're thinking I learn. I'm just going to continue to do the same things. Come on. Thank you. Look, I am going to do this and not look into the light. I did learn. So, perfect. Now, we have a raffle. Raffle. Look at that, it's like I almost read my mind, or read my own mind. Ooh, Ron, would you like to pick?
Oh, you get to talk.
Would you like to pick a raffle?
Nothing worse than reading your own mind.
Lucky winner is
968. 0968.
Did I pick the right one?
Now you gotta pick again, you're on to win.
Let's see how much you win.
Hey, you might blue one.
Oh, wow.
What was it, orange?
Dollar on the table, and you win. Would you like to? You need to
Absolutely.
He knew he was there.
The next winner, 970. Wow, that was close. Did you win again?
It's rigged, it's rigged.
Terry, now is the perfect opportunity if you'd like. Exactly, this is the point where you give your speech. So, this is actually my favorite slide, and I just can't help myself. This one just kills me. I think it's the funniest thing. You know, I'm going to have to start collecting a new weekly picture. And I'm going to have to, have to mix it up. But I really like this. It makes me so happy. And every Thursday night when I'm putting this in, I'm like, should I do the math? Nah, just take 7 days off. And at some point it'll be like, wait, there's only a week left. Why does it say 12 days? It's going to be great. It makes me super happy and I laugh about it. So,
No pressure.
yeah, no pressure at all. So, going into my quote, I laugh at myself all the time. So, I think this has to be true for pretty much everybody, right? So, I'm actually going to do something that I love to do, and I'm going to end it, and I'm going to say, please stay for 10 minutes and talk to each other, because that's one of the things that I love about this club. So, that's it.